been a good weekend. Hopefully it continues that way. We just got a nice little cheeky wink and okay from Gabriel Abadi, who was had a tough end to his tournament yesterday.
Yeah, it started 4-0 and then got pared down in round 5, lost, and then in round 6 was on camera and just had a very close match that didn't fall his way.
Yeah, didn't have the breakers to draw in round 6 as well, despite that 4-0 start, but is bringing back the deck that he played yesterday, a really cool mono red food deck with Asmo and a bunch of blast, Galvanic Blast and Shrapnel Blast, Europe or Aether Grid.
Here's one thing I want to point out. He's playing Jagantha, right?
Yeah.
And so Jagantha means no Seasoned Pyromancer and no Street Wraith. And because of that, his Asmos were just stuck in his hand all the time yesterday. So I'm curious if maybe he changed things up a little bit or if he just ran back the same 75. A lot of times in these 2-day events, people playing Brews, they'll see what works and what doesn't, and they'll try to change a couple things here and there to shore up those deck building errors.
So why don't we start with his match as our first feature here in round 1.
All right, Gabriel Abadi on your left. He's going to be playing that mono red Asmo food deck.
That's him in the camo fish hat.
Yeah, and also the
not really sure what that's about.
Sleeveless.
Yeah, that is quite the fit, as the kids say.
Yeah, that's drip. That's country drip. We out here in Caldwell, Ohio, bringing you coverage from the Apex Gaming home store. Population of around 5,000? What do we determine? Generous. 5,000 is generous. Everybody knows everybody. We went up to the Wings Etc. that's up next to the hotel that the owner of Apex, Kyle, actually owns that restaurant as well. And it was just like all his cousins or nieces and nephews that ran the whole place. So everybody knows everybody. All right, we're underway here. Charlie Ren's playing Tameshi Bloom. This is a deck I've seen on camera a couple times in the hands of Doomwake, the streamer. It's a weird Lotus Bloom combo deck, and I'm curious how it's going to play here against this mono red food deck, because the mono red food deck really thrives with Asmo being used to like. Oh, okay. We have a cool little sequence here. We have discarding Daredevil with the Voldaren Epic here, but I'm curious if the mono red deck is actually fast enough to beat this Tameshi Bloom deck, because while it does have a Tameshi as a creature to go off, it has so much explosive mana generation with things like Wargate for Lotus Bloom, just suspending the Lotus Bloom sometimes too, and then using the Tameshi to just cast it multiple times.
Yeah, not a lot of interaction for the combo out of Abadi's deck. He's more built to beat fair decks, and looking at his deck list, I think he has submitted the same 75 from yesterday. So despite the rough end to his tournament, he likes his deck, and he's just running it back.
Gotta stick with it, man. All right, well, Charlie Ren's untaps here for turn number 3. Has the ability to cast Wargate for Bloom. Let's see if he goes for it. Abadi's deck, pretty decent start here. 2 Voldaren Epicures. Used a blood token to discard a Daredevil and draw a card. Got the Daredevil back, so nice little bit of synergy there. Daredevil, an incredible card alongside that Underworld Cookbook. Abadi playing 4 of those along with Asmo. I honestly don't even remember how to say the full card. It's such a goofy goofball name.
I told you it's Asmo Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Maybe I'm just bringing it up so that you say that.
Maybe.
You never know.
Unclear.
All right, here's the Wargate. This goes against any permanent with converted mana cost extra. We'll get Wargate on the screen for you. I used to use this back in the day to go get Valakut. And also sometimes you'd go get... what's the 2-mana enchantment that all your lands are whatever color? Prismatic?
Yeah,
Prismatic something?
Bloom, no,
it wasn't Prismatic Bloom, but it was Prismatic something or another. Anyway, long story short, it worked with Valakut to make all your cards mountains, and we used Wargate to go get Valakut or the Prismatic card.
Yeah,
and that would allow you
things we had to resort to in 2007.
Yeah, nowadays we just tutor for Black Lotus. Put it into play.
Nowadays we have Dryad of the Elysian Grove.
Yeah, no kidding. Dryad of the Elysian Grove works very similar to that card. I'm sure his chat said the card name. Anyone? Prismatic something. Man, okay, I feel stupid now. Anyway, Abadi here. His turn 3. Don't know, maybe missed a trigger on Saga or something. I don't know what's happening. They're talking to the judge. I don't think so, though. I think he played Saga last turn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think they're... Oh. Who had 2.5 minutes?
2.5 minutes first judge call? Yeah, nice.
Anybody? No? I guess we'll roll it over.
Oh, I think he's getting Oracle text on something. That's probably fair. This Wargate deck actually just has a ton of random cards in it, and not many of them are
widely played.
Yeah, widely played in a number of archetypes. They all kind of see play in like 1 or 2 decks. So Prismatic Omen, that's the one.
There we go.
That's the one. That's Dried Up Elysium Grove without the legs.
I do like this play from Abadi here, running out the second Urza Saga. This is not a match where you need to extract every little bit of value. He needs to apply pressure, and that means making constructs and searching for more artifacts to pump those constructs as quickly as he can.
All right, looks like we have Lotus Bloom. I believe that's a Tameshi, one of the alternate arts, so he's going to be able to essentially bounce any land to return the Lotus Bloom to the battlefield. And he's doing it in response to the first Tameshi activation. Shrapnel Blast does take care of the Tameshi. Lotus Bloom comes back, but the land got returned. So Shrapnel Blast kills the Tameshi. Lotus Bloom comes back, kind of like a free Tameshi all it costs was a bounce land. And now a handful of, not a whole lot, maybe an Eldamri's Call. Could go Eldamri's Call, sack Lotus Bloom, play another Tameshi, and then kind of go from there. But I don't think that he has another payoff other than that one copy of Eldamri's Call.
Yeah, and with only, well, he has 6 mana, so that's enough to play Eldamri's Call, find Tameshi, cast Tameshi, and still have a white open to activate it and return the Lotus Bloom.
Yeah, but you need another payoff after that because that's just mana generation, and you have to like return a land from play to hand to make like 2 or 3 mana each time. Yeah. And his hand right now is just Lotus Bloom, multiple lands, Eldamri's Call. Yeah. One of the lands does cycle though, so he could cycle Triumph.
And I think that's what we'll see on this next end step. He just needs to find some sort of payoff to take advantage of that explosive mana generation.
All right, well, it looks like we have a Saga floating in mana here, going to trigger and tutor for an Underworld Cookbook. That's it. Is going to unlock an Asmo if Gabriel Abadi has that in hand, and he has a Daredevil already to go with the Underworld Cookbook. So all gears are churning.
Yeah. A little awkward for Abadi that he had to use the Shrapnel Blast on the previous turn when that was a turn he really wanted to make a construct. Mm-hmm. So, even if Lorenz suspected there was removal there, it was wise of him to make Abadi use his mana at that point.
All right, so 1 mana floating. We're in the main phase, number 1. Abadi plays Sheikah the Bloodsoaked Keep as a land, uses the 1 floating. He's going to cast Academy Manufactor, and that alongside Underworld Cookbook is generating 3 permanents every time you discard that Daredevil. So cool little sequencing, cool little synergy interaction here between Academy Manufactor and the Underworld Cookbook.
Yeah, he's generating a lot of permanents, but not generating a lot of pressure on Lorenz's life total, though. I think I would have liked to see a construct made there, and then go for the Manufacturer next turn to start pumping that construct when it can attack.
I don't mind it. He has a Galvanic Blast in hand that he wants to save for future Tameshi. This deck really needs Tameshi to sit and play for like a full turn to get extreme value. And I think that there's a reasonable amount of pressure. The 2 Epicures and the Academy Manufacturer is going to generate a bunch of treasure tokens and clue tokens, and so that extra mana and the extra card can find more interaction, and so you maybe don't need to pressure as much, and tapping out is potentially dangerous, but maybe making a construct and then holding up a red mana is a little bit better.
It's definitely close.
Oh, I don't think he has enough artifacts in play for Galvanic Blast if he does that, because the Cookbook plus 1 food token is not enough, and there are no other artifacts outside of the Manufacturer and the things it created.
Yeah, but then you would have had a construct, so that would have been a third.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so Eldamri's Call tutors for Omnath, Locus of Creation. Weird how that card just keeps showing up in like every deck, especially combo decks.
Yeah.
And then the draw, Finale of Devastation. So Charlie Lorenz here has a potential for a boatload of mana. Let's see if he does something cool this turn. Let's take it step by step.
So you can play the Omnath floating 2, and then with a fetch, generate 4 mana from Omnath, 1 from the land itself. That gets you to 7. So we can finale for 5, but that doesn't really do much.
Well, here comes Omnath. Trigger on the stack to draw a card.
Smart.
Galvanic Blast takes it down, so no landfall trigger coming. 2 mana floating. Triumph is the play for turn. Then we're going to suspend a Lotus Bloom, but you have to imagine that that's not going to come off suspend before this game is over.
Yeah, that's a sad one.
Abadi untaps. Saga goes to 3. Trigger on the stack. Got to make sure he makes a Saga or floats a mana here. Draw Asmo. Gonna make a construct. Now we're gonna go tutor in for another artifact. Let's see what he goes and gets. Body in a reasonable position, but this Tameshi Bloom deck is pretty scary. It does some really dirty stuff.
You're never really safe here, but he's done what he needs to do. He's applied a little bit of pressure. He's had the answers to the main threats as soon as Lorenz has presented them, the Tameshi and the Omnath.
Yeah.
I would, one more burn spell should be enough. Oh, this Asmo also acts as removal, though.
Right.
So that counts too.
That was one thing I was bringing up before the game started, is how powerful Asmo is against these creature-based decks, even if they're combo-centric. You know, they do rely on those creatures to generate extra mana or just extra advantages, and Asmo able to blow those up pretty quickly and efficiently, especially while generating a bunch of these permanents. You know, we have another cookbook coming down off a treasure token. The Academy Manufacturer is going to allow him Abadi to make a bunch more permanents. We're going to attack for a few points of damage, and then next turn we're threatening lethal.
Yeah, he's just going off at this point.
Yeah. All right. Another Daredevil pitch.
Yeah, make 3 more permanents.
Yep, and another cookbook still active, so we can do that too. And again, that makes treasure, so we can use that mana to potentially do some more stuff if we want, or we can just crack the treasure to crack the clue tokens and draw cards. And if he's able to find something like a Galvanic Blast, you know, that could potentially protect him from another Omnath or Tameshi next turn.
Yeah, and does use 2 of those treasures to crack 1 clue, so now it's 1 treasure, 4 food, 3 clues on the battlefield for Abadi. And that 4 food with the Asmo means 2 removal spells effectively on the battlefield.
Right. Lorenz draws, finds a blue card. Might have been a Tameshi. Forgot to tick down on the Lotus Bloom, but that's a trigger you can miss. Tameshi comes down. We're going to spin 1. We're going to activate Tameshi. We're going to resolve a Lotus Bloom. In response, we're going to blow up the Tameshi with the Asmo, and that's going to leave him with no mana floating, returning the land to hand. He's able to get the Lotus Bloom back, but that Tameshi is gone. So no mana floating to activate again in response and kind of make 9 or 10 mana in response. Heads up play from Abadi.
Yeah, just pretty textbook there, disrupting at the optimum point and making sure that Lorenz never really gets his engine online.
Yep. And now just a Lotus Bloom in play. Hand is pretty dry. Has something like a Teferi Time Raveler in hand, but facing down a lethal attack. Could crack Lotus Bloom, fetch for a basic maybe, use Teferi to minus on a construct. Maybe survives the turn, but maybe not. It looks like the Raminap Ruins might actually be the nail in the coffin, even answering that construct.
Yeah, you still got 6 power outside of the construct, and so the Remnant Rune's dealing 2 more. 6 plus 2 is 8. That's more than 7.
Yep.
Trust me, I'm a number scientist.
Math doctor.
Yes.
Not a doctorate of math, just math doctor.
Yes.
All right, Flooded Strands to play for Charlie.
Little numbers.
Passes the turn. Body draws, and then Charlie sees the writing on the wall. There's a lethal construct in play. We're going to go game number 2. We're going to take a look at these players' sideboards real quick, and we're going to go over them, and Ross is going to tell you how he thinks each player is going to sideboard. Who you got up first, Ross?
Let's see. Let's go for Abadi first.
All right. Abadi just took it down in game number 1 with his unique take on Mono Red Asmo. We saw this deck a lot yesterday. This matchup seems particularly strange. I like that the Shrapnel Blast, the Galvanic Blast, and the Asmo all can answer the Tameshi and the Omnath.
Yeah.
What else does he have in the sideboard do you think might come in?
So we got 2 Alpine Moons, 2 Magus of the Moon, 4 Shattering Spree, 2 Void Mirror, a Relic of Progenitus, 2 Soul Guide Lantern, a Pithing Needle, and that Giganta as a companion. The Graveyard Hate, disrupts the loops with Lotus Bloom, so I like all of those.
You can also, well, they don't disrupt it that much, right? You spin a white, you return a land, you bring back the Lotus Bloom. If they exile, then you just do it again in response.
Tameshi's only sorcery speed.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, so key clause there on Tameshi's activated ability, and then there's a Pithing Needle. So you can just Pithing Needle the Tameshi.
Now, to note, Pithing Needle does not stop mana abilities, so you can't Pithing Needle the Lotus Bloom, but you can Pithing Needle the Tameshi.
Yeah. So
do you think any of the Magus and the Moon effects are going to come in, since this is like a 4-color deck?
No, I think the Lotus Blooms themselves, as non-land sources of mana, and there's enough basics that I wouldn't be a big fan of them, but we'll see if Abadi thinks differently. And then Lorenz, let's look at their sideboard. We got 2 Burnt and Forge Tender. I like those to protect your key threats.
Yeah, I mean, that card's pretty hot against a Ragavan deck,
Yeah, we got a Duranath Magistrate, an Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, an Endurance, 2 Lavinia Azorius Renegade, a Magus of the Moon of his own, a Meddling Mage, a Sanctifier in Vec. Imagine that one could come in too, but not sure how good it is.
I mean, it just buys you a lot of time.
And it stops Daredevil loops.
That's
the black cards get exiled. So yeah, I like Sanctifier.
Okay.
Could bring in a Tireless Tracker, just thinking that I need another like small ball grindy element.
Yeah.
It's got one of those, 3 Layla of Sanctity, and a Tormod Script. There is a lot of burn in Abadi's decks. Maybe you kind of like Leyline to just stop those blasts from going upstairs.
Well, I mean, if game 1 is an indication, those burn spells are going to be trying to target those powerful combo-centric creatures. Yeah, so I don't think Leyline is going to be worth. I do like a couple of the singleton creatures. I like the pro-red stuff for sure. But we'll see if Abadi agrees with me, and we'll see how they sideboard after the game number 2 starts.
This deck is wild. I love that it has a Goblin Engineer. So you can tutor for Goblin Engineer with like Eladamri's Call and get the Lotus Bloom in your graveyard to set up the loop if you haven't drawn a Lotus Bloom yet. That's a really cool one.
All right, both players here shuffling up for game number 2. We'll see if they are able to keep their 7s or if any of them take a mulligan. While we're chilling here, let's take a moment to shout out our sponsors. G Fuel Energy Formula. They're sponsor of the Apex Gaming home store. Love their products. We're also sponsored by Wings, Etc. Grill and Pub. Ross and I have eaten there the last 2 nights in a row, and we're definitely eating there tonight too. So it's not too bad, and it's a lot of fun, good atmosphere, good company, great place to spend a night.
I had them toss my French fries last night in the Caribbean Jerk dry rub that they use for their wings, and it was awesome.
Nice. We also are sponsored by Luxury Playstyle. You can check out premium tokens from luxuryplaystyle.com. They make those tokens with precious metals, and they're really nice. You can pick up a treasure token, some soldier tokens, various other tokens, and flex on your friends in your next EDH match. luxuryplaystyle.com.
And we're off.
All right, game number 2 underway. Abadi on the draw. No pressure from Lorenz yet, just a flooded strand. Let's see if Abadi has a 1-drop or something to do on the first turn of the game. Looks like an Epicure hanging out there and a cookbook. We'll see what he goes for. Cookbook's the play. Has a Mishra's Factor in hand. Looks like an Asmo, Academy Manufacturer. So a reasonable opener. Couple lands. Asmo, Epicure, not too shabby.
Asmo's the big one. It'll provide a bit of a clock and gives you just removal that's on the battlefield, so you don't even have to hold up any mana.
Right.
Then the manufacturer as well, even without a Daredevil to keep looping it, just being able to turn 1 card into 3 resources, really, really strong.
All right. Lorenz, end of turn, fetches Ketria Triumph. It's going to unlock some of his colors here. He has a 4-color deck. And untap and draw.
And not much in Lorenz's deck list to do on turn 1. Just a couple of Arboreal Grazers that honestly may have been sided out. That's a common card to sideboard.
Yep.
Out in any deck that plays it. With the 4-color deck, your best turn 1 play is really just fetching for one of those Triumphs. Got a Ketria and a Rogren in the list.
All right, just want to point out a nice little shortcut that tournament players use often is when you do something that requires a trigger on your next upkeep, put a little die on top of your deck as a reminder. Last game, Charlie Lorenz actually missed one of his triggers on the suspended Lotus Bloom. It ended up not mattering, but in this game it could absolutely matter. So that die on top of the deck is a nice little reminder.
Yeah, used to not be able to do that.
Yeah, well, things change. Abadi here, turn 2, pretty great sequence here. Goes turn 2, cookbook number 2, discards a cookbook, plays Asmo, and gonna go get the 4th cookbook. Without a Direfleet Daredevil, not super powerful, but pretty good. As long as you can make 2 food tokens, the Asmo is going to represent a piece of removal for one of those powerful creatures, either the Tameshi or the Omnath, or one of those suitor creatures off Eladamri's Call.
Yeah, definitely. Really don't need the Daredevil there to get the engine online or get the important part. The manufacturer, I think, will be enough. So going to be important for Abadi to have a 3rd land. I don't think he has one.
Well, not yet. He has a draw step. This is only turn 2. Lorenz here, though, going to be looking to do something. EOT is going to fetch an untapped shock, I believe, and play Eladamri's Call and see what creature he goes and gets. Eladamri's Call, one of those cards from around when I first started playing Magic. It was originally printed in Plane Shift, I believe, out of Invasion Block.
Correct.
And it was always such a cool card in Extended. The Extended was like the thing that predated Modern. It was a format, that was kind of like Legacy Light before, the 20th year of Magic cards have been printed. But, it was what Legacy was kind of trying to be. And Extended was always a lot of fun. And Eladamri's Call, alongside stuff like Ether Vial, just ended up being really powerful.
So the Eladamri's Call finding a burnt and forge tender there. So
Nice.
Lorenz opting for protection first, which I think makes a lot of sense. If you just go for a big threat, it's going to die. You see the Asmo on the battlefield. The burnt and forge tender, because of the way it's worded, it prevents all damage a source of your choice would deal this turn. Even if Abadi has, 40 food in play, you can sack the forge tender first, then cast your big threat, and it'll be protected for that one turn.
Yep, good call on that. Burnt and Forge Tender, another heater from the Kithkin block Lorwyn, and it was always a real stellar sideboard card against the mono red decks of the format. Gave the Kithkin decks and other, even just control decks would sideboard it sometimes because it was a great blocker, on top of being able to prevent a burn spell from being lethal to your face at the end of the game.
Okay, so no third land here for Abadi. Unfortunate. Just going to make the one food with this cookbook. Has a bunch of Shrapnel Blasts in hand. And holds up a Shrapnel Blast so this way now he has 2 food with Asmo and a Shrapnel Blast. He has 2 answers to a big threat. The Burnt Forge Tender can only stop 1. And now if I'm Lorenz, because that Mishra's Factory, which is that weird looking land next to Remnant Ruins on the body side of the battlefield, did not activate an attack as a colorless creature into the Forge Tender, I know that Abadi's got something he wants to do with that 2 mana.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm sniffing out a blast here of some kind. We do have this Teferi in hand, though. That'll stop a blast.
Yeah, it forces Gabriel, if he wants to interact, he has to do it preemptively, but there's nothing really to interact with. So this Teferi is going to bait, I guess, a Shrapnel Blast, which is going to go face, sacrificing a food. Abadi's hand, though, it is another Shrapnel Blast, and the Academy Manufacturer, a land, will allow him to start churning up some of those tokens, but it just depends on if he's able to draw a land next turn or not. But Teferi going to come down.
A little awkward there for Abadi to use the blast. Now he's down to 1 food. He's going to have to discard a card in order to, get back up to 2. And Lorenz, recognizing this, actually uses the Teferi to bounce the remaining food.
Yep. So the food token going to disappear. There's not a whole lot of, for lack of a better term, there's not a lot of food for making the food tokens. We need that Dire Fleet Daredevil really quickly if we want to be able to kind of combo off. That's one of the downsides of the Asmo cookbook stuff, is that without the Daredevil, the Elbow Chase Daredevil, excuse me, it's a bit awkward to just like discard a card to make a food token.
Real quick, guys. Chat's letting me know that because Asmo makes the creature target itself, that Forge Tender won't stop.
I see. Okay, so Forge Tender actually doesn't stop Asmo because it's a weird wording, but Asmo cannot kill Burnt and Forge Tender because Asmo does need to target the creature.
Asmo says target creature deals 6 damage to itself?
Yeah.
Why does it say that?
Because they overproduce cards.
There's got to be some lore reason for them doing that.
Yeah, but it's because the food blows up in your belly.
That's really strange.
I don't know, man.
Well, that's
Underworld
unfortunate
cookbook.
for Burnt and Forge Tender. So,
It's still fine, though.
I mean, smart of Lorenz to then, target those food tokens, use the Teferi to get rid of the Asmo, because then the Forge Tender can stop the blast. So, still able to navigate around it with the powerful Planeswalker.
All right.
We got some confirmation on what that Pithing Needle is naming.
Yeah, I would love to.
There's a lot of options there. Could name Forge Tender, could name Teferi, although Teferi plus, so it's definitely not that. Could have named just Tameshi.
My guess is Tameshi. Tameshi is the card that is able to generate a ton of mana, and the Burden of Fortune or protecting it means that Asmo, it might be able to kill it, but I like naming it Tameshi just to have multiple avenues of protection. Lorenz here plays the Ren and 6, ticks up, returns the land.
Needle is naming Tameshi.
All right, and we have confirmation that Needle is naming Tameshi.
Well, there's the third land from Abadi that he's been waiting for several turns. So now the manufacturer is going to come down, going to get rid of that last cookbook that the Asmo found several turns ago. And now the engine is going to be fully online.
Yeah, every discard of the cookbook, not nearly as detrimental anymore because it generates an extra food, an extra treasure, and an extra clue. So the extra mana is nice, being able to sacrifice, all sorts of tokens to make more tokens.
Body deciding to get rid of that last Shrapnel Blast to get some more stuff on the battlefield. That is also an interesting decision. It does mean he has a second food, so Asmo is online to deal with some sort of threat like an Omnath.
Yeah,
but you could have done that in response. There's no real reason to jam it immediately unless we want to use that treasure mana to crack a clue.
I don't know. You want to have the second food available at any point as opposed to having to activate the cookbook and then in response maybe they do something instant speed. I don't know.
It's fine. It doesn't make a huge difference.
All right. Fetch EOT from Charlie. Gonna go get another land. Wonder if he has anything to do EOT here.
Or is it 10? Yeah, I guess he did get hit with a Shrapnel Blast, so.
Yep. A couple fetches as well. In a turn, can Wargate thanks to the plus on the Teferi.
It's like we're going to cash in the Bloom to Wargate for 3.
Okay. What are we going to go get? Maybe.
Are we getting the Tireless Tracker?
Oh.
Red and 6. Tireless Tracker does some good things. Looks like he wants another Teferi. So he might be using this new Teferi to bounce a food before he plays his big threat so that the Asmo cannot kill it.
All right, well, Wargate goes and gets Teferi. Old Teferi going to die. New Teferi going to come in with some loyalty on it. And then next turn, when Charlie untaps, can use the Teferi to minus. Might bounce the Pithing Needle to unlock the Teferi. Or to unlock the Tameshi, excuse me.
Well, then the Asmo can just kill the Tameshi.
Right, but could do... maybe doesn't understand the Burden of Fortune or doesn't protect, like we missed it as well.
Yeah. A very strangely templated card.
All right, let's see what Charlie goes for. And we'll see if the sequence is disastrous or not. Windswept Teeth to land for the turn. Hand is Tameshi. 2 unknowns. Teferi gonna minus. Bounces Asmo.
Interesting that it's to bounce the Asmo here instead of a food token. Guess that does cost Abadi a card to recast next turn. Because it got a discard with a cookbook. And there's no more cookbooks to find, so you don't get to recoup that card.
Right. Wargate in hand. Could Wargate for 3 here. Could Wargate for 0 and go get a Lotus Bloom. But again, the Tameshi is locked down with the Pithing Needle. Charlie running out of options. Not under a ton of pressure, though. At 10 life, but no creatures really on the other side of the battlefield that are that threatening. Academy Manufacturer can attack for 1. Red and 6 can tick up and grab a land out of the graveyard. Tameshi's the play.
But that cannot be activated because of the Pithing Needle that Abadi controls under that Academy Manufacturer. So Tameshi not really doing a whole lot here. We'll see exactly what Lorenz has planned for this Wargate. And I'm not sure if he has, some sort of permanent to answer the needle, like anything like an Outland Liberator. I don't see anything like that in his deck list. That would be a nice one.
That's one of the reasons why I thought he was going to maybe bounce the needle with Teferi, just because there aren't a ton of ways to get the needle off the table. But he has a toolbox deck. We could just be missing something. A fetch here. Red and 6 going to get back Windswept Teeth. I wonder if we're going to have a Wargate for 0 to go get Lotus Bloom. And a pass of the turn. Maybe going to go for a bigger Wargate next turn. Maybe going to go for 4 and get an Omnath and try to win that away. But in the face of as Mordecai Dicey Cool Car, I did it. I remembered.
Wow.
Did it.
Both surprised and impressed.
Nice. All right, so cracking a clue token to draw a card. Tap the only red mana he had available, it seemed like. Didn't know if that was a mistake or not.
Galblast and a Soul Guide Lantern both are quite good because there's a Lotus Bloom in Lorenz's graveyard. So get him to tag that for free. and then having the Lantern back up for the next Lotus Bloom.
Yep.
Really, really nice.
This Tameshi Bloom deck is pretty sweet, but it does often require the graveyard to really get going, so it's just another point of vulnerability alongside those creatures.
Abadi chooses to just cash in the Lantern for a card immediately, I think to jumpstart this engine with the Manufacturer and Underworld cookbooks. Yeah, and to be able to recast the Asmo. Okay. Uses a treasure for that. Again, no more cookbooks left in the deck. There's 2 in Abadi's graveyard in that large pile over there. So Asmo not going to get a card back.
Yeah, even though you failed to find, you still got to shuffle your deck. So he's going to go ahead and shuffle. Charlie Lorenz here needs to find a way to combo through all this stuff. I mean, the Asmo, the Pithy Needle, these are all just like really tough things for a creature to jump through. And I kind of agree, though. I actually kind of like holding the Soul Guide Lantern just to make sure that should all go wrong, you know, you still have a way to stop the Tameshi Bloom combo. And if something like Omnath were to come down and you become desperate, then you can crack it to draw a card if you need.
Yeah. But this does now leave Asmo up and Galvanic Blast up because he has the 1 treasure remaining. So has 2 pieces of interaction.
Could also discard a cookbook and then activate twice as well if they doesn't have Galvanic Blast in hand. Yeah. Not sure what the last card is off the top. Charlie untaps. Potential for 7 mana. Actually has an Otawara. Otawara alongside Red and 6 could be a way to get out from underneath the Pithy Needle and kind of mini combo or hard combo, depending on if Abadi has the right type of interaction. 3 mana to channel thanks to the legendary creature in play, Tameshi. And he's going to target a Pithy Needle. We're going to see what happens.
I imagine this Tameshi is going to die. Ooh.
Yeah, I would have liked maybe trying to kill Tameshi in response with the Asmo.
Yeah, so now, although there's no Lotus Bloom anymore. So the Tameshi actually isn't even threatening, so...
Well, we do know that Lorenz has a Wargate, so he could go for Wargate on Lotus Bloom here.
Yeah, but then the Tameshi just gets killed in response. There's another Otawara in hand.
I wonder, can you check how many Boseijus are in the Tameshi Bloom deck? I'm curious if there's a Boseiju that can start busting up these instead of just having to bounce them with Otawara.
Yeah, and these Otawaras can keep coming back with the Wrenn.
All right, here comes a Wargate for 0, and in response, we're going to have Abadi make some stuff and use the Asmo to kill the Tameshi.
There is 1 Boseiju in Lorenz's deck.
Yeah, Boseiju very powerful alongside Ren and 6, but it feels like Abadi just has the right type of interaction at the right time here, and even's able to discard the Pithy Needle to the cookbook. Feels safe enough to do that, holding on to the Gal Blast with that treasure token still available to cast it.
And Lorenzo's always just coming up a little bit short here. It feels like he needed to be more careful in setting up one big turn, and always went for it when he was a little short. Needed to be a little bit more patient.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he had too much in the way of actually being able to do it, though. Oh, to note, the Teferi is on the table, so no Galvanic Blast in response. So this was all up to Asmo for the interaction. All right, pass out the turn, untap. Abadi goes for a Shinka Bloodsoak Keep. We'll see if he uses it to discard or plays it. 2 Mistress Factory in play, Galvanic Blast in hand. Could maybe try to go for a kill this turn. And the attack comes. I would like to see a Galvanic Blast here before attacks. That way, if the Burnt Unfortunator wanted to prevent, it would have to sack before blocks. Now we can block Asmo and still use...
Can't block a Lotus Bloom.
Now we can block with the Burnt Unfortunator. Abadi, a very animated player here. Nice guy. I talked to him this morning. Lamented the bad run out at the end of the tournament yesterday.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think a main phase Galvanic Blast here would have been excellent. You know, if Lorenz prevents it, then he's forced to bounce the Asmo to not die to this attack. Not really sure why this is the way we did things.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We had a free block on the Asmo.
Well, I don't think Otawara can target a land, so we couldn't block the factory, and I think he's just trying to do max damage prevent. So we're going to block a Mistress Factory. We're going to Otawara Asmo. 3 damage is going to come through. And then post-combat, Galvanic Blast is going to finish him off, and that's 2-0 in the favor of Gabriel Abadi in that mono-red food deck.
Yeah, and not blocking the Asmo and losing the Burnt and Fortune Tender in combat meant the Galblast was lethal.